You might have heard the term pay equity, but have you ever heard the term menstrual equity or period poverty? These are terms that I've just learned, and I want to share them with you for a most enlightening discussion. My next guest is Christine Garde Denning. She's founder and CEO of an important organization called Could You?
You are watching Profonde TV with host Phyllis Haynes.
It's a pleasure to meet you. I have to say, I had not heard this term that is the basis of your organization. And I had never, ever heard of period poverty. So I'm surprised at myself because after reading about it from your organization, which is couldyou.org, um, I'm amazed that the United Nations and global organizations have taken up this cause. So, can you explain what is period poverty?
Yes, and thank you for just this opportunity to talk about it. It is when it's a global issue that impacts 500 million estimated menstruators globally, and it's people who cannot afford monthly to purchase menstrual products. And so there is a direct correlation between food insecurity and period poverty. Obviously, if you have a hard time purchasing enough food to feed your family, food has to come before menstrual products. And so right here in America, even, there are families that have to choose between food and pads or tampons. And so they're picking food, and the implications on the menstruators in the house is real.
But the word poverty is attached to it. So, say more. Obviously, it is a matter of not being able to afford it, but what's the impact? What's
Yeah.
the result of not being able to afford it?
So if we look at both, I'll talk a little bit about what we're seeing in Africa, India, Nepal, and then what we're seeing in America. So if you look at America, when a student can't afford pads or tampons, they are doing things like wearing a tampon for 16 hours, which is a recipe for toxic shock syndrome. We are being told by girls across the country that they are missing school 3 to 5 days every month because they can't afford a product. And there's serious educational impacts to that. We are even being told that when they can't find products, that they might find older boys to date, to have sex with, and they'll buy their products for them. What we're finding in Africa and around the developing world is that the same. Girls are missing school 3 to 5 days. Women are missing work. And actually, that's here in America as well. Some women will say that they will call out if they can't be bleeding with nothing if they're on a job. And so they might call out for work. That actually then forces work insecurity. So in Africa, what we have found is not only are they missing school, but there are studies that are being done. A recent study was done by Plan International in the Wa East district of Ghana, stating that 83% of the adolescent girls in an entire region are having transactional sex for a pad. This is something we are seeing in every country we are working in. Our team members are talking to young girls who are saying, teachers are calling us and saying, our girls don't want to miss school. So they get offered to have a transactional sex moment with some gentleman who buys them a box of pads. And so when we heard this, it's shocking and it's not okay. And so we began to, so in Ghana, for instance, we approached the group that Plan International that did the study. They did it in partnership with with the youth parliament and some government and other agencies. So we went to them and we said, we have served over 100,000 menstruators. We do really good data collection to prove that the people we give cups to are actually using the cup. We have well over 91.5% acceptability rate, meaning after 3 cycles, the women we give cups to are still using the cup. It's life-changing. So we said to them, could we pilot with you so you can see this is a practice that can stop tomorrow for
Now I need
a year.
you've moved ahead a little faster than
Oh,
me.
sorry.
Okay, so let's describe this innovation called the cup, because
Okay.
in my lifetime, this is not something I'm familiar with. Um, Certainly, there are diaphragms for sexual safety and prevention from birth, but what is this cup that you're talking about?
Okay. So the menstrual cup is actually made of medical grade silicone. So it's reusable. It can be used a minimum of 10 years with proper care. It's not new though. The menstrual cup is actually something that was invented over 87 years ago.
Really?
Yes.
Hmm.
And I think that is what is startling to me, that all these years there would be this intervention that could meet the menstrual needs of menstruators around the world for that's safe and green and very inexpensive, and yet it's not normalized, which is part of what my organization is trying to do. We're not only trying to provide the cup to vulnerable menstruators who need it, but we're also trying to get the word out so that A, people know about period poverty, and B, people know that the menstrual cup is safe and available.
And just, again, I know we are careful because we're on the air or over
Sure.
YouTube, but how long does a girl keep this in? Is it
Mhm.
a daily removal? Is it an hourly removal? What's the practice?
So a menstrual cup typically holds 5 times as much blood as a tampon or pad. So everyone menstruates and heavier, lighter. So we don't, all we know is we tell people you have to get to know your own body and you have to get to know how much you actually bleed. What's beautiful about the menstrual cup is that it shows you how much blood, whereas in a tampon or pad, you don't necessarily, it's full, but you don't know how much you bled. So what we say to a new user is just put it in and then maybe 4 hours later, take it out. And what you'll notice is, oh, I have a lot more room still. And so put it in, and maybe the next time, take it out 5 hours or 6 hours. And you have to change it, remove it, empty it every 12 hours, but you can remove it sooner if you bleed more. And so the beautiful thing is that once you become comfortable with how to insert it and how to remove it, I personally can say it becomes a game changer because you are able to keep it in for so long safely that it impacts sports and work. And if you're on a plane, or if there's so many ways, especially if you're in situations where you don't have access to a good bathroom, it allows you to, in the privacy of your own facility at home, be able to insert it and remove it.
And you say this invention was around 80 years ago. So what's the reason, I mean, that it didn't take off? Is it just the profit motive, that there's more
Yeah.
profit to be made with tampons and pads?
So I can say that it was actually 1937 that an American actor, Leona Chalmers or Chalmers, I don't know, it's Chalmers, invented it, patented it. And over the years, it's just gotten better and better. I will say that it's been really disheartening to realize that it has not taken off. And yet, some of it is because of misinformation. Some of it is that people just didn't know about it. I had never heard of a menstrual cup. We're not teaching about it in schools. We're not putting it on, you don't see a ton of ads about it. And so I've been researching a lot. And what I have come to realize is that The tampon and pad industry alone is a $40 billion a year industry. That's a number from 2022. Menstruators are purchasing disposable products every month for 40 years. So the menstrual cup is quite a big disruptor. If it was normalized and quite available and lots of people were using it, it would mean you would buy one and not need to buy another one for 10 years. And
Okay, let me push back. Let me push
Sure.
back a little bit because I know I introduced that question.
Yeah, please do.
But this is also because of religious issues surrounding genitals, etc. Is it possible that people believe you have to be not a virgin in order to use this cup?
That is absolutely not only possible, but it's something we come up against often. And that is why we don't just hand you a cup and leave. It really does require education, information, conversation. And so the way that we function as an organization is we partner with NGOs, institutions, clinics. We partner with people that are trusted already in that community, whether that community is Queens, New York, or whether that community is Mozambique, Africa. We partner with trusted NGOs and people who are already doing reproductive health work in that community. What we simply do is we train the trainer. So we offer your team a menstrual cup to try. And what happens is the team who tries it inevitably love it. And then they have personal experience on how they used it. Was it something that took a few months to get used to? We train them on how to insert, remove, care, store it. We give them a lot of training on, in general, hygiene and menstrual hygiene. And then once we've trained that team, now that team can easily add it into the reproductive work they already do well. And they're trusted. So what they do is they talk about myths. They talk about misperceptions. They talk about menstruation, and they talk about hymen. And they talk about how using a menstrual cup does not mean you're not a virgin. They talk medically around, there are women and girls out there who lost their hymen, but never had intercourse. And that could be from sports and life and just their body. They talk about redefining, if culturally virginity matters to that culture, it's not our place to say it doesn't. So what we simply say is, let's be sure we are communicating that the presence or absence of a hymen does not equate virginity. And we go through materials, we give them materials that talk about that. And we also talk about how there are women who can use the cup and are still virgins, and they can still keep their hymen intact if they even had one still. So it really is a matter of education from trusted people. So it's not coming from the outside in. We're not trying to convince someone to use it. We're saying, if you are someone who can't afford a product and that product is actually hurting your everyday life, here's an option that you can try. And what we find is, done well, the results are pretty extraordinary.
You've answered my question and even more, but because I understand my own limitation,
Sure.
I want to be clear. So
Yes.
you are saying that if you have an intact hymen, this cup is still usable?
Yes.
Okay, that's what I needed to get clear on, because there are whole populations, I'm sure, in Africa and India and Nepal and places where you are, where an intact hymen is something that is treasured or valued on a religious level. So that's why I'm asking the question. But okay, so you have this product. Is it cheaper to produce? Is it expensive to produce this product? Have you found partners in the production of the cups?
Yes. So I will give you a little history about how we landed where we landed. When I learned about the menstrual cup, I began to speak to one of the world's leading researchers on menstrual health in rural Africa. Her name is Penelope Phillips Howard. She's out of Liverpool School of Tropical Medicine. She has been in the field doing research for 38 years, and much of her work has been done on menstruation and the menstrual cup. So I've been learning from her about its safety and how she has seen it work very well in rural Africa. And so when I heard about it, and then I personally used it for the first time, I thought, why did no one tell me about this? Because I'm literally on the other side right now. So I thought, when I started to use it, it was a game changer. And I thought, how come I didn't try this in my 20s or 30s? And so I began to research and reach out to menstrual cup companies, and there are plenty, and said, I love the cup. I want to get the cup and I want to give it to vulnerable girls. We started in Mozambique. And so what we found was people are generous, but there's only so much generosity a for-profit company can give. And so the need was greater than I could get cups. And so we ended up raising the resources. Once we knew that this cup was accepted across Mozambique in different contexts, meaning Muslim communities, Christian communities, rural communities, prisons, refugee camps, like we knew it was working. We thought, I need so many. And then we had other countries coming to us. So we pivoted, and we now manufacture our own FDA registered menstrual cups so that we are able to keep the price down, so that for $10, I am able to provide a full unit, which includes the medical grade silicone menstrual cup and instruction for use in whatever language you need it in. It also comes with a handmade cotton carry bag to store it in after use. And currently every bag in America is being made by young girls who have been sex trafficked, ages 7 to 17. And we are employing them in their future endeavors. And then in each country we work with local teams and hire their own identified marginalized women to make those bags so that we can have employment. And then it also comes inside of a Ziploc, a zero waste biodegradable Ziploc bag. So for $10, you get not just the cup, the bag, we ship it to you, and we provide health education with local teams. We train your trainer. We also provide data collection because it's important to prove people are using it. So we have a wonderful M&E specialist who we do baseline and end line. And then now we are publishing our data in medical journals just so the world can see this thing is working. And how do we help get the word out to get it to the people who need it?
Well, let's look at the anecdotal part of this as well.
Okay.
I mean, as you were speaking, I kept thinking about, just think of the millions of women who are going to be liberated from this whole experience. I mean, even as a child, I can recall the limitations of pads because it was, for me, you know, tampons were still not an idea. And it was, you know, it was something daunting every month. So I'm just thinking now, what do you think the impact is going to be with all of these women and girls suddenly free from the, I don't want to say tyranny, but the challenge of a monthly period?
So it's why I love this work. It's life-changing. And I'm not saying it's the only solution, but here's what I do know. Having served over 100,000 menstruators, I am getting video testimony, WhatsApp messages, reports, Instagram messages. I am often overwhelmed with the real life testimony across the world from someone who says, thank you, this thing changed my life. Whether it's something very extreme, like a young girl who lost her entire family in a cyclone in Mozambique in 2018, ended up in a resettlement camp as a teenager alone, gets infected, goes to Central Hospital, is given a menstrual cup. That young girl that's life-changing. You don't have to worry about where you're going to find a pad now. And that young girl in particular graduates in 3 months as a nurse. And there's something beautiful about that. There are communities in Uganda where when you menstruate, you are sitting outside on sand all day. All of these things are things I didn't know about. But what happens
Say that slowly because, again, we've got listeners who may not know
yeah.
exactly of what you speak. So,
So
what about this?
we globally as a team will meet on Zoom on a regular basis. And one of our last team calls, I simply said to our partners, can you share an experience with you? Why do you do this? Why does this work matter? And so I heard one of our team members say, I am passionate about this because there's a community in Uganda where she lives, she's Ugandan, that there's this cultural, and also because they can't afford pads, they sit on sand for the day while they're menstruating. Now, I thought that can't be true. I'm not that I think she's a liar. I don't. It's just my head thought that can't be true. And yet I did. I listened to her 100%. I trust her. And I also researched it, and it is true. So one of the things she's passionate about is building a relationship in that community with the elders, and just beginning to listen to say, how did this practice start? And is it a benefit? And did you hear about the menstrual cup? And so she's been giving cups out there, and it's not an overnight fix, but here's what's happening. It is changing the lives of individuals, which in turn, word of mouth spread quickly. Then you begin to have conversation with elders and say, if you had a way to have their needs met, now they don't miss school during those days. Now they're not isolated. It is transformational. And so one of the greatest, earlier you asked me about the poverty and how it ties into period poverty. The World Bank has stated that girls not completing 12 years of education costs countries $15 to $30 trillion in lost earnings over a lifetime. There is a deep connection and correlation between education. When you educate a girl, the impact it has not just on her, but on her family and on her community, it matters. And so if there is an obstacle that we can so easily get rid of, we need to get rid of it.
So, your organization, couldyou.org, what do you need? I mean, make your request.
So we need champions that are going to, 3 things we need. We need money, because I have a wait list of 200,000 girls waiting for a cup, and women. And we're talking in America, across Africa, in Ukraine. This is great for people living in war, living in refugee camps, living in Brooklyn. So for $10, you can serve one of those menstruators for 10 years. So we're always looking for funders, whether that is private donations, family foundations, or businesses. We have a lot of CSR money that we could access because it is a really good return on investment. We also need
CSR money.
social responsibility. So a lot of companies have budgets that they give to community of partners. We'd love to be a community partner of businesses that care about girls and women in education. And we'd love them. We fit very well into the environmental impact. Tampons and pads take 500 to 800 years to decompose. And our cup is zero waste in partnership with Stericycle to be recycled at the end of use into renewable energy. Like, it's beautiful that we could partner because of the environment and because of education, and just because it's a right to have your period done with dignity. We also need champions to get the word out. So people who have social media presence, people like you, thank you for letting us get the word out here. So we want people to know about period poverty, and we want them to know about the cup. We want them to know it's an option. And then the third is we need advocates. So in America, there are lots of menstrual equity bills that have been passed to provide free menstrual hygiene products in lots of locations, in schools, in prisons, in homeless shelters, on and on. all of those bills that we have seen, they all define a menstrual hygiene product as a tampon or pad. And so that means that schools that are giving dispensers and free tampons and pads, that's good, but it's only meeting the need of a student until 3 p.m. Whereas a cup would be cheaper, better for the environment, and meet their needs nights, weekends, holidays, summers. So we're asking politicians to simply amend the definition. And I will give good news. Recently, a council member out of New York City, Amanda Farias, her team and Women's Caucus, they just submitted this new round of bills that does just that. It literally will change the code so cups could be an option. Not for everyone, but if you want one, then it is an option. So we hope to see California come. We hope to see other states. So if there's a politician out there that cares about menstrual equity, we would just like them to consider expanding the definition to include this as an option.
Wow, thank you. I have to say, your organization does even more than this. We probably need an entire documentary. I noticed that you have malaria mentioned on your website.
Yes.
So this and anything else that you do that you'd like the audience to understand.
So as an organization, we are committed to curating, proving, and then scaling solutions to poverty in partnership with government, institutions, NGOs, and individuals. Therefore, we are currently focusing on scaling the menstrual cup. We want to end period poverty by 2040 in partnership with all of the great, wonderful people out there that are doing it with just pads. We want to add the cup to it and end this thing. That's what we're doing in the scaling stage. In the proving stage, we are partnering with a wonderful for-profit company called Liveful. They have patented the world's best repellent. Truly, when you have it on, you cannot get bit for 16 hours. I've used it myself. It's amazing. So what we are doing is we are bringing that to countries in Africa that have very high malaria and other mosquito-borne diseases. And when we were giving it to that population, they're not getting bit. Part of what we're now in the middle of proving is we believe that $12 billion is being spent to prevent malaria, but the interventions that are being used are just bed nets, pesticide bed nets, and indoor residual spraying, both good options, but not the only option. Plus, they both only protect you in your home or under your bed, whereas repellent should be recognized as an individual protection as well as a community protection. So we're in the proving stage right now, about ready to launch a trial with the government of Uganda in partnership with the Ministry of Science, Technology, and Innovation. They're amazing, and they know it works. They've seen it work, but now they need to do a true trial, blind, placebo, in the community, because ultimately we want to come to a place where it's just an option again, that if you are someone, if you're a government and you are able to spend money on bed nets and indoor residual spraying, you ought to have the ability to use that budget on a natural, safe, and really pleasant repellent. So we're in the proving stages there. There's nothing I can do right now other than let the experts do their work. But then there will be a time where we would love to help to scale that. So,
well, I just thank you for your work. In closing, can you tell me what was the first spark that caught your eye? Because obviously, you could be running any corporation here in America. What is it that caught your eye to be in this work?
There's a book I read a long time ago called, it was by Frederick Buechner. And there was a quote that said, I might get it a little bit botched, but true self happens when your deepest gladness and the world's deep need meet. And I want to live in the middle of that intersection. I want to do what I think maybe I'm good at, which is I want to inspire people to make their life matter. All of us can do something. We can't do everything, but we could all do something. I want to help people figure out what their one thing is. I care about justice, and I don't like systems that oppress, especially when a few people are making decisions for the masses without including the masses. And so when I heard about this particular issue, and I thought, you cannot tell me that we have a solution at $1 a year, and we're still letting little girls have sex for a pad, that's not okay. We're letting little girls bleed without dignity, and we have a solution out there. So now I'm on a mission to say, I will tell anyone that listens about this. And I believe there will be a moment that we look back and the cup is as normal as the tampon.